Welcome to Shaman's View.
Hello, welcome. Welcome to the Shaman's View. And today we are talking about how to release grief from the body.
Yeah, and I'll start by saying, hi, I'm Ray Christ.
And I'm Nina Christ. And weekly we share on the Shaman's View different perspectives, different ways of approaching life that the shamans have shared with us for thousands of years. They've preserved this ancient wisdom. And we want to share a little bit of what's touched our hearts and helped transform our lives.
Yeah, in essence, Shaman's View are the views of how we can go about everyday life things, everything that is so human. It's not about, shamans don't talk about something that's happening outside of life or beyond this life, but rather they give us a perspective of how we can shift in life in order to be able to deal with the difficulties that life brings. All of yoga, Taoism, Tai Chi, and the martial arts, as well as shamanism, were created as an anthropological study in helping us understand who we are, what we are, and how, again, we could go about life, and especially in difficult moments. So yeah, grief is something that we all may have faced in life and or will at some point or another.
Yeah. And I think, as in the West, there's so much in the language that's instilled in the language that just simply does not exist in the language of these mother tongue like Quechua or Sanskrit. We find in the Western language, such as English, that there's oftentimes positive and a negative, where we really are looking at heavy or light. And so today, as we speak to the emotion of grief or sadness, which is part of life, and if you care, you're going to feel sadness at times. If you truly are sincere and loving, you will feel that grief. And it's about, as we feel that heavy energy, as we feel into the heavy energy of sadness, Chinese medicine shares that this particular emotion is held in the lungs, in the lung meridian. And in the Taoist practices of Tai Chi and Qigong, we are taught how to move the energy, keep the rivers within the body, these living waters within, to keep them moving so we can process emotions such as grief. Because when life happens, it's oftentimes difficult to know how to transform this heavy energy if we haven't been taught, if we don't have a reference for how to do that. And one of the practices that we share in our shamanic training, the 9-month training that we offer every year, is we do a practice called awakening the rivers within, and we actually tap the lung meridian. And that tapping with the support of the breathing helps to dislodge any trapped, stuck, dredged up energy in the lung meridian. And as we release that energy, that blockage, where our thoughts, emotions, and our energy all ride on that same channel, we sometimes may feel a flow of energy come up, and it may express itself in a yawn or tears. And it's really a beautiful way to allow that energy to be released without getting into a downward spiral of despair and kind of getting stuck in that emotion.
Yeah, and I think released is a really good word because when we look in Chinese medicine, or in the same thing again, the shamanic point of view, is that grief is stagnation. Grief is a moment that something happened so saddening that it just stopped us on our tracks. So what happens is when we look at the lung meridian is just looking at Nina's notes. Lung meridian is the first meridian of the body, and it's the first place that life moves. That's right. At the moment I take an inhalation, now life is moving and is happening. So when we're stagnated, when we feel rather grief is a stagnation of the lung meridian. So we will be yawning, or we'll be sighing. The body automatically wants to say, it wants to release that. And also tapping, and actually we can just all do some tapping here. I invite you to bring your hand up find your collarbone, and go to the collarbone, corner of collarbone and shoulder. And it's right there, lung 1. That's the first meridian of all the meridian system.
And if it's tender, that's your body saying, I need a little more attention.
So we can start by tapping, and actually you can make also gentle fists. I feel that you could do. Nina is doing both sides together. You could do that, or simply once you finish one, take a deep inhale. Say ha ha ha. Take it to the other side. Again, find the collarbone, trace it all the way out to where you find the shoulder, and it's in that corner. You'll see if you go in. There's an indentation. It's almost like a nice inlet right there.
Yeah.
Lung one, tapping, or even take a deep inhale, exhale it with a sigh. Ha, ha, ha. And especially that sigh, go ha.
The breath helps move the energy.
And I want to say to grief is a really big emotion. And for those, one of the things that we see is like that the shamans tell us is that we're the wounded healers. So for those of us who received either a wound or something that happened that brought us into the wound of grief, that's something that we want to take in and understand that it is while it's difficult when we're in it, it is empowering us and it has given us depth of humanity. Grief is, and again, it's when we want to transmute, the shaman is someone that takes something and through fire ceremony or through saging or through rattling, whatever it is, we use metabolize it to change it. So if that has come to my life, grief, and I've been through grief in several occasions, I think most of us do experience that by losing someone or being in very difficult circumstances. We receive this grief and we come into the fire. I'll take a piece of stick, blow into it, my grief, my grief and my sensation of loss for that person or for that situation, and we'll place it into the fire and watch it burn. It's important to do this, to acquire fire ceremony. When we do fire and the mind sees and knows that I've blown this into the stick and I can see my grief go, I can then transmute it into purpose. Those, I'll say this and I'll give it over to you. Also, it's like, especially those who are grieving a loss of close ones, it seems that those who transmute it into a mission, those who say, okay, I've lost my friend because of this, I'm going to create a mission in the world to gather funds for this kind of illness or gather funds for this kind of incident that happened, and they bring this into mission. Then the grief itself finds an outlet. So they take this really heavy emotion and they steer it somewhere and they push it towards that direction, and rather than leaving it stagnate within and not have an outlet and not have a way out. So it's like, because grief can feel like that there's nothing I can do. It
can be paralyzing.
It is paralyzing.
It can be paralyzing, and it can be, like Ray was saying, it can become the fuel to a mission to not only help yourself transform the energy, but then to help others. And that can really be inspiring. In Quechua, the word for fire is Nina, and Nina is a great purifier. And so fire is seen as a beautiful way to purify. And so as Ray was sharing, we have a ceremony where we blow that sensation, the sadness into the stick. And then as we witness it being burned, we feel that purification happening within. Now, the lungs are seen as the great highway of energy in the body in Chinese medicine. And they're the first defense against external pathogens. So if we feel grief, it's very healthy. It's very healthy to feel the grief. Where that line of balance gets tipped is when we hold on to the grief beyond the time that's appropriate or the time that's healthy or natural. And you may have felt that if you are feeling sad and you've had a loss and then there's a loved one that consoles you and you are comforted by that, it almost feels paralyzing. But when we can move it out of the body and we can continue life and find a way, find a place for that grief as fuel, then we actually, like Ray was saying, we develop a depth, and then we can have empathy and hold space and offer affection and acceptance and admiration for our loved ones when they begin to feel grief. It's like, I know how you feel. I've been there, my sister, my brother, my beloved.
Let me help you. I'll show you the way.
Let me help you. Yeah.
And to that, also, I'm going to say that there are types of grief that it may be impossible to let go of, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the loss of a loved one. So I think that a key element of what you said, Nina, is like finding a place. So creating an altar is one of the most important shamanic things, and you'll find in all, I mean, all religions, all systems that study humanity, even in yoga or Taoists and shamans. So creating an altar for that person or that situation that we have lost, somewhere that goes, somewhere that I know that is there. It's an altar that I've placed in a specific place where I can go. I may cry, I may bring flowers to, but I'm finding a place for it so it can be sitting in the altar rather than sitting on my chest only, and in my and stagnating in my chest, and bring down my immune system, bring down my whole the rest of my life. Mourning is one of the most important things that bring us into humanity. It should always take precedent over other things, and we should always pay attention to it. There needs a moment to cry and release, and a moment we find a place, an altar to place it at, so we can visit it rather than carry it with us all the time.
And I'm hearing Ray's words, and I want to chime in, because this is what, when you talk about a point of reverence, to create an altar offers you a tangible point of reverence so that you can move on without feeling, I know for myself, there's times where I feel like, oh, I don't want to be disrespectful. It's like, how can I move
guilty
on when not, maybe I feel guilty or shame. Like, I can't be laughing. I can't be smiling. I need to honor, and I need to mourn, and I need to really pay homage to this beloved, or whatever the loss may be.
Yeah.
But building an altar, the process of creating it, and the process of coming to that place to honor it, then you create a place, and then it's like, okay, I'm going to now take care of the animals, take care of the children, take care of my responsibilities, so that I can show up for myself and show up for others in my life. And whatever it is that we're mourning, I always think of like a great loved one that's passed, is like, I know they want me to be happy. I know they want for me to live a joyful life. And so I want to honor them and process, and then continue to really enjoy this experience of life.
And have that place where I know that I can go at work, or I can tend to those who are next to me now with love and presence, and know that grieving has a place that is happening. It's almost like because the altar is constantly grieving for us too, so we can grieve, cry, let it be there, and then turn to those who are immediately next to us and be able to tend to those also.
Yeah. And one of the components, one of the pieces of an altar is a candle. And so again, that fire element comes in, and lighting that candle connects us with the spirit realm, or the energy realm, or however you like to reference that connection to heaven. But we light that, and we are connecting, and we also are purifying.
I have a question coming in. It says, is an altar for the god or a goddess, the altar that we have at our house, the same with an altar for someone that's passed? And the answer is no. We like to keep the altar that we have for gods and goddesses, for saints, for all those who are your allies from the spirit world. Keep that altar, and create a separate altar that is for the ancestors, or for those who have passed, or the situations that we mourn for. And I want to say again, just to be also clear, it's like we create an ancestor altar. It's for people that have passed. We may have a picture of them, we might have something of theirs. We create something beautiful, and then there may be a little god or goddess that accompanies that, but it's not the altar where we sit in front of, say, Christ or Mother Mary, or the Buddha or Shiva, Hanuman, Kuan Yin. This we're describing.
On.
That's our altar. So one altar, we have gods and goddesses, saints and avatars, which is where we meditate, where we fill up energy. But an altar, then again, for mourning or for beloved, is something we'll create separately. And especially when it's for ancestors, Taoists most usually say we create a little house outside for them, outside our house.
And we wanted to speak about grief today because a lot of people have actually reached out at requesting this topic. And during the holidays, we find that it can be extra potent. And it's also a time as we're moving into the winter solstice where the days have gotten shorter in a lot of places in the world.
Darkness.
And so darkness comes in. And so as we conclude today's Shaman's View, we want to also invite you to our Andean gathering that's happening this weekend. The shamans will be with us, and they're going to talk to us about the Nuestra. Am I saying
Nuestra, yeah.
Nuestra? Is this inner star that we each possess, and how we can activate and connect and access this inner light during this dark time. And so the shamans will be sharing this beautiful, beautiful teaching, this way of being with us this weekend, both today and tomorrow from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock Eastern time. So if you're able to join us, we would love to have you with us for the Andean gathering.
Is it 10 o'clock or is it 9 o'clock?
It's 10 o'clock, 10 to 12 Eastern time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, there you go.
And I also wanted, before we log off, thank you everyone for joining us. I also wanted to mention that we are still open with our enrollment, thank you, for our signature 9-month training where we meet one weekend a month. And so if you're interested in learning more about the practices, the studies, this beautiful ancient wisdom that Ray and I share from our hearts, enrollment is still open for this year's training. And next weekend we'll be launching session 2. So we'd love to have you join us. And if you have any questions or not sure if this is the right fit for you, please reach out to us at evolve@jaguarpath.com.
Thank you all for being here today at Shaman's View. Lots of love and light to all.
Horpichai.
Horpichai.
Thank you.